Ask her what she was doing on July 18, 1979. She will tell you. Not approximately. Not roughly. Exactly. She will tell you what she ate. What she wore. What song was playing on the radio when she walked into the kitchen that morning. She will tell you what her mother said to her at 3 in the afternoon. She will tell you the temperature outside. She will tell you what she felt, in detail, when she lay down in bed that night. Ask her about August 12, 1984. The same. Ask her about a random Tuesday in 1992. The same. She is not guessing. She is not making it up. She has been tested. Repeatedly. By neuroscientists at the University of California Irvine. Her recall has been verified against newspaper archives, family records, and diaries written by other people. She has been correct in nearly every case. Her name, in the published medical literature, was listed only as AJ. The public learned her full name some years later. Jill Price. She is the first human being ever formally diagnosed with a condition that, until her case, science had not known existed. The condition is called hyperthymesia. It means, roughly, the inability to forget, and it is not, as you might expect, a blessing. Jill Price was born on December 30, 1965, in New York City. Her family later moved to Southern California, where she grew up. By her own account, her remarkable memory abilities became evident to her around age 8 or 9, sometime in early 1974. From that point forward, she began to retain a continuous, vivid, day-by-day record of her own life. The recall was not voluntary. She did not study to remember the dates. She did not use mnemonic systems or memory palaces, the techniques that competitive memory athletes train to develop. The memory simply arrived. Every morning of her adult life, the moment she became aware of the calendar date, her mind would deliver every other instance of the date she had ever lived. If today were March 5th, she would remember March 5th of last year. And March 5th of the year before. And every March 5th back through her childhood. The memories did not arrive as a list. They arrived as experiences. Sensations. Smells. The texture of her clothing. The mood of her parents. The headline of the newspaper. They came at her, unbidden, every day, all day, in waves. She was not a savant in the popular sense. Her intelligence, by formal testing, was within the normal range. She was not particularly skilled at memorizing strings of unrelated numbers, or pages of unfamiliar text, or vocabulary in foreign languages. The condition was very specific. It applied to her own autobiographical experience. Her own life. In continuous high resolution. For most of her early adulthood, she did not realize how unusual her condition was. She assumed other people remembered their lives the same way she did. Just less articulately. As she grew older, she began to understand that this was not the case. Friends and family could not recall what they had been doing on a random date 5 years earlier. They had only fragments. Anchored to major events. Birthdays, holidays, milestones. For Jill, every day was equally vivid. Equally accessible. Equally permanent. The realization brought her not joy but distress. Her memory was indiscriminate. It preserved every embarrassment. Every argument. Every loss. Every disappointment, in the same crisp resolution as every triumph or happy moment. She could not move on from anything. She could not look back at painful experiences from a softened, faded distance, the way other people do. The pain of decades ago was as fresh and as detailed as the pain of yesterday. She began, in her 30s, to describe her memory as a curse. The past, she said, was always with her. She lived in 2 times at once. The present moment, where her body existed. And the long, parallel history of every other moment she had ever known. She found it exhausting. Her sleep was disturbed. Her ability to focus on the present was compromised. In her published memoir, she described waking each morning to a kind of internal projection, every previous version of that calendar day, playing at once. It was, in her words, a non-stop, uncontrollable, totally exhausting movie. We are halfway through this case. And the strangest finding is still ahead. In the year 2000, Jill Price wrote an email. She sent it to James McGaugh, a distinguished professor of neurobiology at the University of California Irvine. McGaugh had spent his career studying how memories are formed, consolidated, and retrieved by the brain. He was one of the most respected memory scientists in the world. The email she sent him was straightforward. She told him she could remember every day of her life since she was a teenager. McGaugh did not, at first, fully believe her. He had heard claims of extraordinary memory before. Most, on examination, turned out to be exaggeration. Ordinary memory dressed up by selective recall. Or the use of explicit memorization techniques. He invited her to come to his lab in Irvine for testing. What followed was several years of structured investigation. McGaugh and his colleagues, including Elizabeth Parker and Larry Cahill, designed a series of experiments. They quizzed Jill on specific dates drawn at random. They asked her to recall historical events. They asked her to identify the day of the week on which certain national news stories had broken. They cross-checked her answers against newspaper archives, almanacs, and other independent sources. The results were stunning. Her accuracy, for events that fell within her own lived experience, was near perfect. She could name the day of the week for almost any date going back to her early childhood. She could describe with verifiable specificity what she had personally done on those dates. She could recall what she had eaten for breakfast on a Wednesday 20 years earlier. The researchers were not dealing with a stage magician or a clever guesser. They were dealing with a unique form of human memory. The answer, when it came, was stranger than anyone expected. In 2006, McGaugh and his team published the case in the journal Neurocase. In the paper, Jill Price was identified by the initials AJ. The article coined the term hyperthymestic syndrome to describe her condition. The word hyperthymesia is derived from the Greek words for excessive and remembering. The paper described two defining features. First, the subject spent an abnormally large amount of time thinking about her personal past. Second, the subject had an extraordinary capacity to recall specific events from that personal past. Brain imaging studies followed. Researchers used magnetic resonance imaging to examine the structure of Jill's brain. They identified several regions that appeared enlarged compared to control subjects. These included parts of the caudate nucleus, a structure deep in the brain associated with habit formation and procedural memory, and certain regions of the temporal lobe involved in long-term memory consolidation. The findings suggested something nobody had predicted. Hyperthymesia might be related, in part, to an unusual coupling. A bridge between systems that normally specialize in habits and systems that specialize in episodic, autobiographical recollection. It was as if her brain treated every day of her life as a kind of habit to be catalogued automatically, the way other people's brains catalog the route from their bedroom to their bathroom. Following the publication of the original paper, additional cases of hyperthymesia were identified around the world. Over the years, researchers have documented several dozen confirmed cases. They include people from different countries, different professions, and different cultural backgrounds. Each shares the central features: compulsive recall of autobiographical events, accuracy verified against external records, brain structures showing certain consistent variations from typical controls. The total number of confirmed cases remains very small. Hyperthymesia is one of the rarest neurological conditions ever formally described, with only a few dozen individuals worldwide identified in peer-reviewed studies. Researchers continue to investigate why some brains develop in this way. The condition does not appear to be caused by trauma, by injury, or by any acquired event. It seems to be present from childhood, often emerging in early adolescence, and to persist for life. The genetic and developmental factors that produce it remain unclear. What is clear is that the people who live with it generally do not describe their experience in glowing terms. Several have echoed Jill Price's view that the condition is more burden than gift. The continuous presence of the past makes ordinary processes of grief, of moving on, of letting go, much more difficult. Time, for them, does not heal in the way it heals others. Every wound remains exactly where it happened, at exactly the date it happened, available for revisitation at any moment. Jill Price published her memoir in 2008, under the title The Woman Who Can't Forget. She has given numerous interviews over the years, and she has consistently described her condition with a mixture of honesty and resignation. She did not ask for her memory. She cannot turn it off. She has learned, over decades, to live alongside it. The scientific contribution of her case is now firmly established. Before her, no formal description of hyperthymesia existed in the medical literature. After her, an entire small field of inquiry opened up. Memory researchers continue to study the condition. They hope to understand how the typical human brain selects which memories to keep and which to allow to fade. Forgetting, it turns out, may be just as actively regulated by the brain as remembering. The mechanism that lets most of us forget the details of a random Tuesday 5 years ago is not a failure of memory. It is a feature. A normally functioning, evolved feature. People with hyperthymesia appear to be missing some part of that feature, while retaining the recording side of memory in near-perfect form. Their existence helps neuroscientists understand the architecture of human memory more clearly than any healthy brain could. The lesson of Jill Price is uncomfortable. We spend our lives believing that more memory would be a gift. More clarity. More detail. More past. The handful of people who actually live this way report the opposite. The human capacity to soften, to misremember, to lose track of pain, is not a flaw. It is part of what allows a person to keep moving forward. Next case. A boy in 1994 who could not feel pain. Not from cuts. Not from burns. Not from broken bones. His parents thought they had been given a miracle child. Doctors warned them he might not survive to see 30. To live in a human body, it turns out, requires the constant, useful, intelligent warning of pain.